Hello, and thank you for joining today's webinar on repairability of electronic products. My name is Erica Logan. I am a Senior Manager for Technology Assessment and Resource Development at the Green Electronics Council, and I'll be the moderator for today's webinar. Thank you, Sydney. Electronic products are an essential aspect of our daily lives, yet those same devices are fueling an ever-increasing global e-waste stream. Additionally, a shift from linear to circular models as a tool to drive sustainable use of resources and mitigate the harmful effects of climate change has catalyzed a renewed interest in the ability to repair electronic products to extend their useful life. Today, we will discuss product repairability regulations in the European Union and how to leverage best practices globally. For today's webinar, we have three presenters whom I'll introduce in a moment. But first, a few reminders. Please note that all attendee lines have been muted. So if you have questions, and we hope you do, please type them in the questions box. We'll get to as many as we can after our final speaker has finished presenting. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be made available afterwards to share with your colleagues and for those unable to attend live. Now, it is my pleasure to welcome our distinguished presenters. If we could advance the next slide. Starting our discussion will be Nancy Gillis, CEO of the Green Electronics Council. Nancy has more than 20 years experience leveraging sustainability to increase competitiveness, reduce risk, and foster innovation in the public and private sector. Before joining GEC, Nancy was a senior executive with Ernst & Young, where she managed client engagements related to supply chain resiliency and sustainable procurement for Fortune 100 companies. She also launched and served as global lead for Ernst & Young's Resilient and Responsible Supply Chain suite of services. Nancy joined Ernst & Young from the U.S. General Services Administration, where she was responsible for developing sustainability-related supplier evaluation criteria and expanding the use of sustainability standards in federal procurements. Nancy, over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Erica. Thank you very much to the panelists who will be speaking after me. And thank you to all of you who are joining us today on this webinar. As Erica shared, my name is Nancy Gillis, and I'm the CEO of the Green Electronics Council. And we're super excited to bring to you today a conversation about the importance of repairability, both what it means to sustainability in the electronic sector, but also what is happening, especially in regulatory activities overseas. So some of you might be joining us and not know what the Green Electronics Council stands for and what we do. So let me give you a quick overview. Next slide. The Green Electronics Council, we're actually a mission-driven nonprofit. We are focused on creating a world of only sustainable technology. And we really embrace technology for all the benefits it provides, the ability for us to be on this webinar today, but we refuse to accept all of those benefits at the price of people or planet. So we envision this world of only sustainable technology, one that provides those benefits that we increasingly rely on, but also is one in which the environmental and social impacts are mitigated. Next slide. Now, there are a number of nonprofit organizations that also seek to have an impact in sustainability in the electronic sector. What makes the Green Electronics Council different? Well, it's the fact that we actually seek to leverage the power of institutional purchasers. These are large-scale purchasers, both on the public and the private sector side, who actually, with a stroke of a pen, make a decision to buy thousands of a particular technology. And when they make that decision, and it's a choice, you know, what they're doing is they're actually sending an incredibly strong demand signal to the many iconic brands who provide those technology products and services that we rely on and appreciate. So the Green Electronics Council, for more than a decade, has been working to support the activity of sustainable procurement in the technology arena. And what we do is we provide a number of freely available tools and resources to institutional purchasers. Some of those you see reflected on the slide here. Some include contract examples. How do I buy actually a sustainable technology? Well, if you're doing a contract, we have some examples of actual language you can use. In some instances, there may be a particular topic, like repairability that we're addressing today, that is not easily understood. So we also offer purchaser guides. And in fact, we're super excited to have a purchaser guide available for how do you buy sustainable cloud, and to be currently updating our purchaser guide on buying technology that comes from more socially responsible supply chains. So our labor and human rights purchaser guide. We also provide webinars, such as today's, and what we're very well known for is we manage an eco-label called EPEAT. EPEAT is the leading global eco-label for the IT sector, and it's one in which we are very excited to actually continue to increase its viability. And in fact, today's webinar on repairability is one thing that we're seeking to improve the EPEAT eco-label on, which is making sure that the EPEAT eco-label actually, for all of the categories of technology it addresses, emphasizes as strongly as possible repairability. Next slide. Now, I talk about the EPEAT eco-label. What categories does it cover? For those of you who have not heard about us before, EPEAT, as I said, as the leading eco-label, basically covers any and all technology that we can find is necessary, especially as all of us work in our home environment. So EPEAT covers computers and tablets, laptops, televisions, imaging equipment, all of the products you see here listed on the left side of the slide. We also recently launched a category on photovoltaic modules and inverters, recognizing that many of the technologies that are sustainable, of course, need power. And we really emphasize that if you're using renewable energy as a power source, that even the hardware used to provide renewable energy should be sustainable as well. And we're super excited that next year we will have two new categories launching. One focused on network infrastructure. That's a recognition that all of our technology needs a network to connect us. And so that network should be sustainable as well. And then also a category focused on health and well-being wearables. And that's in recognition that for us, health and well-being, at least in 2020, has taken an undue emphasis. So this has been a short overview of the Green Electronics Council. Again, we are super excited for this conversation on repairability, and I warmly welcome all of you who are interested in this topic. As I mentioned, we are going through a process in 2021 to further develop and emphasize repairability criteria within the EPEAT eco-label. And if you'd like to be part of that initiative and learn more about it, at the end of this webinar, there will be Erica's contact information, and you should feel free to reach out to her. With that, Erica, let me turn the webinar back to you.
Thank you so much, Nancy, for introducing GEC and setting the stage for this important discussion on product repairability. So let me move to our second speaker today, who is Chris Spiliotopoulos. And Chris, my apologies, as I'm sure I probably didn't pronounce that correctly. But Chris is a project officer at the European Commission's Joint Research Center, where he provides technical support for the formulation of EU product environment policy. Prior to joining the JRC, Chris worked in the environmental NGO and eco-design sectors, including serving as the convener for the working group that developed EN 45554, an assessment method of the ability to repair, reuse, and upgrade energy-related products. Chris holds a Master of Science in Environment and Development from the London School of Economics. Chris, over to you.
Thank you very much, Erica. Just a quick check whether you can hear me. Am I being heard?
Yes, we can hear you and see.
Fantastic. Okay, so good morning or good afternoon or good evening. And many thanks, first of all, to the Green Electronics Council for, well, first of all, organizing this event on a very, very relevant topic, and secondly, for having me. So as Erica mentioned, and very well pronounced, my name is Chris Pilotopoulos, and I work for the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. And more specifically, let's see if the slide. For the product bureau of the Joint Research Center. So we're basically a team which is based in Seville, Spain, and our role is to support the implementation of sustainable product policies at European level. So the ones you see on the screen, such as the EU Ecolabel, the Green Public Procurement Guidelines, the Eco-Design Regulations, and the EU Energy Label. So basically what we do is offer techno-economic support to the analysis, but not just stay in the background, but also actually go as far as proposing draft legislation, which then goes its way through the legal processes, and also welcome the input and work together with stakeholders in the course to develop these studies and these legislations. So the European Green Deal, it's been exactly a year, 1st of December 2019, when the current Commission took office. And one of its main flagship initiatives has been the European Green Deal, which basically means working towards making the European Union climate neutral by 2015, cutting pollution to make sure that life, humans, animals, plants are protected, and all that while making sure that the industry has the field to innovate, and also that this transition from, let's say, a linear economy to a circular one is just and fair. So how do we zoom in to repair from that? Well, if we zoom in one level, we have the Circular Economy Action Plan, which is a plan that was adopted earlier in 2020, in March, I believe, and sort of lists initiatives and projects that the Commission is planning to explore. One of which is the Sustainable Product Policy Framework, which is basically meaning a coherent policy framework with sustainability in mind. So products that are more durable, more repairable, more upgradable, but also the services that are around the products, not just the products themselves. The Commission does not only target the supply of products, but also likes to address demand. So we want to make sure that reliable and robust information is reaching consumers. That is why there's a number of initiatives listed there with regards to empowering consumers themselves and purchasers to make these informed decisions. And special attention, special reference is made to electronics, with a circular electronics initiative to address the growing waste streams that we see in this product category. One of the measures that's being referenced is regulatory provisions for a number of products. For example, we have a study that is ongoing for the exploration of regulatory measures for mobile phones. So what we have at the moment is already a plethora of product policy tools, starting with eco-design, which is basically the framework that establishes mandatory minimum requirements with the view to see the worst performing products in terms of sustainability leave the market. And then we move forward to the EU energy label, which basically has the opposite effect of rewarding the higher sustainability products and informing consumers, allowing them to make better purchasing decisions. Then we have the green public procurement guidelines, which is something similar to the EPEAT program. And as we move further in voluntary criteria and initiatives, and as we move to more sustainable products, we have the EU Ecolabel also being awarded to the best performing products in the market. So some of these product policy tools, namely eco-design and energy label, have been so far focusing more on energy efficiency aspects. So what we want to do is how we can take advantage of the success and the potential of these tools to start introducing provisions and requirements related to material efficiency, and do that in a coherent and reliable way. So what I'm going to do next is give you some examples of how we have started in the past, present, and future to do that. First things first, in order to take such initiatives forward, we need an appropriate methodological framework, the backbone of these policies. So JRC, and specifically my team at the Product Bureau, published a study last year in 2019 on a scoring system for repair and upgrade of products, which outlines a general non-product specific methodology to be able to do this assessment and be accompanied by a scoring system. My colleague Felice, who should be in the audience, should be taking credit for that instead of me. And one, let's say, point that was done in parallel to the work done at the European standardization system, which led to the publication of a general standard EN 45554 that Erica mentioned earlier in her introduction, again to be able to assess the repairability and the upgradability of products. So what does this method actually do? It provides a series of steps, the first of which is identify the priority parts of a given product category, parts that for which there's a higher probability of failure, and parts that are really, really key for the main functionality of the product. And once we do that, we identify the parameters that are relevant for repair and upgrade. And there's a whole list of those, some of which are relevant for some products and some other parameters for other products. So on this table, you can see a list of these parameters, from fasteners and how they are joined together, to tools, to repair information, to spare part availability. So the idea here, this analysis on a product specific level and see which of these parameters make sense for that particular product group. For example, it could be that the criterion, the parameter of data transfer and deletion might be more relevant to a smartphone than, let's say, a refrigerator. So the idea here, once this is identified, is to proceed with a hybrid system of rating and scoring this product specific. product that's the subject of the object of the assessment. So, for example, there would be a 0 to 1 pointing rating system for each of the identified parameters. Let's say we take the parameter of tools. If a product, if the tools that are necessary to repair the product are widely available, or there's not even a need for tools to repair a given product, or they are, let's say, provided together with the product, that means that they would get a high score against that criterion. Similarly for spare parts, if those parts are available to a wide audience, if they're available for a considerable amount of time during the lifetime of the product, then that means it gets a good rating. For some of these parameters, we have seen that it makes little sense to rate if there is, it makes little sense for them to be part of an aggregated scoring system if they get the lowest rating. For example, if there are no tools available, then it can't be considered that we can reasonably compensate that inability with a better score in other parameters. So we have taken that in mind as well and proposed for some of these parameters some minimum, let's say, requirements to meet that. Here's just a reference to a couple of studies, again, from my teammates here at the Product Bureau, where this principle has been applied using some examples, televisions and smartphones. But my point here is that while this this assessment and scoring system is being considered by the European Commission, at the same time, the parameters that are listed have served as a sort of template or can be found in regulatory requirements and voluntary criteria thereafter. So servers and data storage products has been a key example. In fact, I believe it has been the first product within the eco-design ecosystem, within the eco-design scope, where we have started to see some mandatory requirements related to repair. So examples of such provisions are design for disassembly, basically manufacturers having to make sure that joining, fastening, and sealing techniques do not prevent repair. There needs to be availability of software and firmware updates, and there needs to be information on the techniques and the tools that are required to make a repair. This regulation was published back in 2019. A little bit later in the same year, we have seen some other examples, what we called an eco-design package of regulations that was published in, again, in later 2019. So there we've seen an even more systematic consideration of material efficiency aspects and repair-related aspects. And I hereby provide the example of electronic displays, but that has not been the only product where we find this type of provisions. There's regulations such as the one for fridges, for example, dishwashers, washing machines, where we have also seen such provisions such as the availability of some spare parts, and there you can see which parts the requirement applies to whom those parts should be available, and also for how long, namely a minimum of 7 years after the last unit was placed on the market. Apart from spare part availability, there's also requirements about the maximum delivery time that those spare parts should be available. Sorry for the delay, as well as, again, provisions, as we've seen for data centers, on repair and maintenance information for a specific period of time, and again, the availability of software, firmware, security updates. Now we've seen some examples of mandatory requirements in eco-design under the eco-design framework, but we also have voluntary criteria. And the breaking news is that today the official journal of the containing EU Ecolabel criteria for electronic displays. And this document, these criteria include, again, provisions related to design for repair. So again, the concept we have here is going a step further than the regulatory requirements that we saw earlier, so targeting even higher performing products. So some spare parts which were not covered for availability by the eco-design framework, here in the EU Ecolabel criteria, in order for a product to be awarded the eco label, they also need to be available. And similarly, that availability does not only expand in terms of scope, which products, but also the period of time. So a bit earlier we saw that the mandatory requirement for some spare parts was 7 years. So here in the EU Ecolabel criteria published today, we see that extended for some spare parts to 8 years of availability, the provision of a commercial guarantee for 3 years, disassembly and repair instructions, again, available, etc. Then moving from the present to the, let's say, near future, again, credits go to my colleague Felice, who is leading the work on the development of green public procurement criteria for computers, monitors, tablets, and smartphones. So this is still under development, and here we see the concept of GPP actually is using two types of criteria to, let's say, guide public authorities when making purchases. So we've got the core category of criteria, which is what is recommended to be the minimum for GPP, and then we have the comprehensive, which is using most of the time the same type of criterion, only with a higher ambition, a higher level of ambition, a higher stringency. So another categorization in this case that we see so far is a number of provisions related to extended services agreements between the public authority and the supplier, which includes again access to all sorts of repair information, diagnostics, failure statistics, management of incidents and preventive maintenance, repair activities, an interesting provision for a commitment to repair and go for product substitution, product replacement, pickup and return, etc. But also not just service related criteria, but again designed for repairability, meaning again the joining and fastening in some components of a product, not deterring repair, and secure data deletion, etc. So Felice can correct me, or we can come back to you if I'm wrong, but I believe this process has undergone 2 cycles of stakeholder consultation, and a latest draft is currently under consideration by the Commission. And from the near future to the slightly more distant one, we have very recently announced the launch of an ICT task. will work towards assessing direct and indirect environmental impacts from ICT systems. So what we want to do here is basically look at the systemic level and move a little bit beyond the product by product studies or consideration that you see in a traditional, in a classic eco-design let's say study eco-design cycle. So here we want to see systemic interrelations, interactions between users and devices, see what are the trends in terms of services as well. Also considering the challenges that the challenge that these technologies are fast moving, smartness, connectivity, multifunctionality of these devices, always with a policy perspective in mind, having policy options for the future. So I think I have provided a link which you may be get in touch, and we'll be more than happy to hear your input and feedback on as this study progresses. Thanks, Erica. I hope I haven't gone way over
You
my
are
allocated time.
You are perfectly on time. Thank you so much, Chris. Very interesting presentation. And thank you for updating all of us on the EU policy landscape. There are already a number of questions for you, but I'm going to save those until the end. So let me move to our third speaker. We could advance the slide. Kyle Wiens is the co-founder of iFixit, the repair community internationally known for open source repair manuals and product teardowns. iFixit has empowered hundreds of millions of people to repair their broken stuff. Kyle has testified before the US Copyright Office and the International Trade Commission, and he is involved in developing global environmental standards. Kyle regularly speaks on design for repair, service documentation, and the environmental impact of manufacturing. His writing has appeared in The Atlantic, Harvard Business Review, Wired, Popular Mechanics, and the Wall Street Journal. Kyle, over to you.
Thank you. Very excited to be here. I have a lot to go through. iFixit kind of is the interface between those of us in the electronics world, the sustainability world, and the physical world. And so I want to take you on a bit of a journey. First, I'm going to explain kind of what iFixit is and how we work. I'm going to show you inside some products, and then I want to show you a view into the French scoring system, which is going into effect January 1st, so you can get a feel of what it will make for your purchasing decisions. iFixit is an organization dedicated to teaching everybody how to fix all their things. We have thousands of step-by-step repair guides to make it easy to fix all kinds of things, whether it's a skateboard or an iPhone or a tractor. iFixit's goal is to make it so easy to fix things that people repair them rather than tossing them away and getting something new. In a typical month, we have about 12 million people using iFixit. And this is, unfortunately, this is the world that we're in. The repair shops substantially have gone out of business. There used to be a TV repair shop in every neighborhood in the developed world, and there just isn't anymore. There still are TV repair shops in the developing world, but in the US and Europe, we've lost those shops. And so we need to get them back. You say, well, where did they go? And what can we do about it? Well, substantially, we're tossing things. We're tossing phones in drawers. We are discarding products faster than ever before, and that is a significant hit to corporations' bottom line as the lifespan of assets has declined. It's led to increased total cost of ownership. So there are brands that are pushing back. This is Patagonia running ads talking about how they want to repair their products. Patagonia makes a little bit higher cost products up front, but over the total cost of ownership, you end up actually saving money as well as dramatically helping the environment. So I would posit that it's time for a repair jobs revolution. I think that every major company should be expanding the size of their IT team and adding more internal repairers. If we're going to build a circular economy, if we want to move away from resource extraction, which, by the way, behind me I have, this is the Molycorp rare earth mine. The rare earths that go into your smartphone, out of all the elements that we use, on the periodic table, 50 different elements are in your smartphone, and about 12 to 14 are recoverable in recycling. The neodymium that comes out of a rare earth mine like this is not recoverable in recycling. So if we want to be more resource efficient, we have to look at focusing on repair, reuse, product life extension, and move beyond traditional thoughts of recycling. There's no such thing as taking a truck full of old smartphones, grinding them up, melting them down, and making new smartphones. It can't be done with any technology that is in the short to medium to even long-term horizon. So let's start thinking about building emotional connections with our products and hanging on to them longer. Patagonia really is an amazing brand leader. It's interesting that a clothing company is doing this, because in the world of fast fashion, clothes don't necessarily last that long. But if we can do it in the apparel industry, certainly we can do it in the electronics industry. This is a repair cafe that we ran at the Patagonia retail store in Beijing. We were showing people how to fix things. And we were actually doing iPhone repairs in the Patagonia retail store, which is pretty cool. So what does it take to make a product fixable? Well, it needs to be easy to assemble. It needs to have standard parts. It needs tools. So we rate products. iFix has been rating products for about 15 years on our repairability score, which is from 1 to 10, how easy or hard it is to fix things. You can go to ifix.com and hit the repairable products link, and you'll see our ratings. Here are some of the smartphones from last year. And I want to tell you a story about how this impacts the real world. Like, we're talking about this abstract scoring. We got EN 45554. We got the French system. We got iFixit. Europe is coming up with a system. Well, what does it mean in the real world? So I was in Tokyo. I was in Akihabara, which is Akihabara Radio Town is like one of the biggest electronics markets in the world. And I saw this sign and it captivated me. My translator said that this sign in Japanese says, "Welcome to Junk World." And the Japanese have these amazing hobbies. One of them is buying broken things and fixing them just for fun. And so this shop sells broken laptops and tablets and things. And in the center of this table here, they were selling various laptops and tablets. And this sign here says the Surface Pro 3 has a low price. iFixit scored it 1 out of 10. It's very hard to fix. Bet you can't. Ha ha. And they had actually sorted the tablets and the laptops by repair score, and the higher repair score products had a higher price because they knew they were going to be easier to fix and longer lasting. And a product like the Surface Pro 3 that's glued together and almost impossible to fix had a very low price. And I think that there is a real strong correlation between resale value of a product and serviceability. So I'm going to tell you a few stories of some products. I'm going to tell you some bad products. I'm going to show you some bad products. I'm going to show you some good products in the same product family. So let's talk about wireless earbuds. Everybody wants them. Probably if you're a purchaser, you've probably bought lots of wireless earbuds for employees, as everybody has been working in the pandemic. What you don't want to buy is Apple AirPods. I'll show you an alternative, but you don't want to buy these. AirPods, if you think about any wireless earbud, they have a battery in the charge case and they have a battery in each earbud. And there is no way to access or remove the battery without totally cutting these things open and destroying them. In the process of opening the AirPods, we cut ourselves. We were bleeding all over the AirPods. It was really kind of grisly. AirPods are notoriously one of the worst products for the environment, not just because of the material impact, but it's not possible to dispose of these things at the end of life. I took AirPods to the largest electronics recycler in the US, and we took them apart together. And I said, in any of your existing electronics recycling processes, would the AirPods work? And they said, no, actually, they would be a hazard. If we missed one of the little earbuds and it went into the shredder, it could cause a fire, but it's not worth their time to separate out the battery. Also not easy or safe to separate out the battery. And of course, you can't landfill these things. We have an epidemic of garbage truck fires across the US where electronics will go into a garbage truck, the compactor compacts, it sets it on fire, and then you have cardboard and paper, the lithium batteries are an ignition source, and the whole thing goes up. So if you take one thing away from this webinar, it would be to ban purchase of AirPods across your organization. Now let me show you an alternative. The Samsung Galaxy Buds, or Galaxy Beans as we like to call them, are equivalently highly rated by all of the product review sites, whether it's Engadget or The Verge. Everyone says the Samsung version of this product is just as good as AirPods, but when you open them up, they just pop right open. There's a gasket around the outside. They pop right open. They're really easy to work on. They have a standard battery that you can buy. These things are $150 new. This battery is $20 for a pair of them off the shelf. AirPods battery fails after about 18 months. So the product is kind of disposable after 18 months. But with these Samsung Buds, you can throw a new battery every 18 months and you're good to go. Pretty slick. That's how you get a repair score of 8 out of 10. Now, there are things that Samsung could do better. They could make service information available. They could sell the parts directly. Instead, you have to go to places like iFixit right now to get the batteries. But same form factor, same compelling features, same performance, dramatically different approach to a product, and dramatically better. Now, this is not the case across the board. There are many other products that Samsung makes that are very hard to repair. The Apple equivalents are easier. And that's why a consumer isn't going to have the information. They're not going to know up front. I'm going to a store and I have 5 smartphones to choose from. Which one is more repairable? There's no way to know without taking it apart and analyzing it. And that's what my engineers are doing all the time. We take apart products every single day, we rate them, and we make that information available. And we're looking forward to the next generation of environmental standards that will make that more accessible to people. And the French scoring system is the first one. So let me show you a laptop, which this is maybe a larger dollar amount purchasing decision. The Microsoft Surface laptop, this is the original Surface laptop. I want to show you the process of opening this, just to give you an idea of how bad this can get. This product, in terms of environmental impact, may be worse than the AirPods. So we went to open this thing up, and the first thing that you do is you look for screws. So we look underneath it for screws, and this is like a very sad moment where we peel up the foot underneath the computer, and there's no screw hole. And we look all over the computer like, how do we get this thing open? And there's the fabric on top. If you've seen one of these things, they're a really cool, sexy, slim product. But the top was actually glued on. So we had to cut the fabric off. And then once we got through that, we found that the frame was actually riveted or welded together. And so there was no way to get to this point without completely destroying the uppercase and the lowercase of the laptop. So it is not possible to even get to where you can start to access the battery, which is a consumable, without destroying the laptop. Here's the whole thing disassembled. This is how you get a 0 out of 10 on a laptop repairability score. This is the first and I think the only laptop we've ever reviewed that scored so low, where we determined that it was physically impossible for anyone, even a professional, to swap out the battery on this laptop. And of course, there are other issues. If you're an institutional purchaser, you want to maybe be able to access the storage. So if you have secure data, separate the storage from the device so that you can resell it safely. Not going to be able to do that with this product. So Microsoft realized that they had a challenge, and this is not a doom and gloom story. This is actually a story of redemption, because the new Microsoft Surface Laptop 3 that came out last year got a significant redesign, but only on the inside. If you looked at the Surface Laptop and the Surface Laptop 3 on the outside, you cannot tell the difference. They're the same weight, they're the same thickness, they're the same industrial design, same form factor, everything. But on the inside, look underneath this foot, there's a screw. And you remove those screws, and then the top is actually magneted on, and the whole thing comes apart. So this is how you get a 5 out of 10. This is the greatest single point swing that we've seen in a product, where they went from something that was completely disposable, designed for the dump, to a product that's designed to stand the test of time, where you're going to be able to get in and swap the battery. They went to a modular storage solution so that you can remove those screws, take the uppercase off, take the SSD out, maybe dispose of it securely, and then you'd be able to resell that asset. So people often will say, well, you repair folks, you're standing in the way of progress. You're going to make the product thicker. You're going to make products that people don't want if it's repairable. The Samsung Galaxy Buds are a great example of a product, same form factor, very compelling, super repairable. Same thing with the Surface Laptop 3. It can be done. The designers just have to do it. One thing that we see a lot is glue, and glue is kind of the lazy way to put products together. You can do it better. And so I want to show a model. Motorola is the only mainstream smartphone manufacturer that's making service parts available right now. You can't go to Apple or Samsung and get service parts for one of their smartphones, where with Motorola you can. They sell parts to resellers like iFixit, and we actually worked with them to put together repair kits. These phones have some glue in them. They're not super easy to fix, but overwhelmingly consumers are able to do the repair. So this is a survey that we did of people that had bought a repair kit from iFixit for their Motorola phone. And here's the compelling thing, is that serviceability builds brand loyalty. Once people have gone through this emotional experience of breaking their device, having the manufacturer stand behind it, have a repair experience, they're more likely to stick around with Motorola in the future. And here's some of the things that people are saying. So this is really an opportunity, I think, for companies to redefine the product experience and move beyond just first sale, get as much money as you can out of people on day one sale, and start thinking about an ecosystem. One question I get a lot is, well, I see repair shops for iPhones so much. What about repair shops for everything else? And one thing that Apple does well is that there's a robust ecosystem around the iPhone, partially because there just aren't that many iPhone models. We're looking here at the pie chart. This is a couple years old, but it's basically the same thing today, where there's only 15 iPhone models. So a local repair shop can stock 15 different screens. In the Android world, it's much harder. This is just one snapshot view into how many Android devices are out there. There's probably 4,000 different Android phones on the market. This is why standards like EPEAT are so important, because we have to have a baseline level of standardized format of information, availability of service parts. Any one company, stepping out and doing things like Motorola has, it's great for their customers, but it's not going to shape the whole industry. So we'll share these slides with you afterwards. I'm not going to go into super detail, but these are some of the principles that go into a repairability scoring system. This is France's upcoming scoring system. It will be rolling out January 1st, and laptops, smartphones, and a few other categories of products will have to have this symbol displayed prominently at retail. It is a self-disclosure. It's something that the manufacturers and the retailers can work with. This is the spreadsheet that you can use to calculate this. The spreadsheet is available on the French government website if you want to try calculating a product. This is, so the first set of criterion is information. Are you making circuit schematics available so that repair shops can do board level repairs? Are you making the repair manual publicly available? And you'll note there's a difference here. You get some points for providing information to repairers and some points for making information available to consumers. One thing to think about is the consumer is you. If you're an institutional purchaser, if you don't have access to a repair, let's say you're not in France, you don't have access to what the repair scoring is, you can get the service manual for a product before you go and greenlight purchasing a lot of them, and take a look, and you can make a decision off of that. And you don't have to wait for the scoring system to take effect. Dell, HP, and Lenovo already have service manuals available for all of their laptops. And there are big differences within their product lines. Some are more serviceable than others, and you can generally figure it out off the service manual. Here are just, because the spreadsheet's hard to read, this is the kind of information that the French system is looking for. This is more comprehensive and expansive information than really anybody has been providing, but if we can get this kind of information, it will really open up an ecosystem and open up a whole new economy of repair. Here's another view. This is availability. Well, this is ease of disassembly. The French system differentiates between laptops and smartphones. There's sort of the different parts that they prioritize, and then ease of disassembly. How many steps did it take to get to the battery? How many steps did it take to get to the SSD? Overall, the French system is quite detailed, quite sophisticated, and quite good. We're really happy with how it's turned out. Here are some of the parts that they're looking at for a laptop, for example. And then it also factors in availability of spare parts over time, and then who the parts are being made available to. You get some points if you only make them available to the manufacturer's repair centers, like an Apple store. You get more points if you make it available to independent repairers. You get even more points if you make it available to consumers. Consumers is what all of you is if you're an institutional purchaser, you're a consumer. And if you want your IT operation to be able to do service, you need to be advocating for availability of parts and information to consumers. Here are some of the parts that they're looking at. For laptops, they're really prioritizing the common parts and prioritizing upgradability of the common parts. And then this is something that is unique to the French system. The iFixit scoring system does not do this. They factor in the price of parts relative to the price of the new product. And this is really important. Samsung is notorious for this, where the parts for Samsung phones are so expensive just for the screen. It's so expensive for a new screen that you're almost like, I'll just get a new phone. Samsung makes incredible margins on the service parts. It's almost to their harm because they've kind of priced repair out of the market. People generally are more likely to replace a Samsung phone with a cracked screen rather than repair it, solely because of the price. And this French scoring system is a direct reaction, I would interpret. I'm guessing I wasn't in the room when they were deciding this, but I would say this is a reaction to Samsung's predatory pricing on phone screens. And then I won't go into details, but these are some of the kinds of things that we factor when in iFixit scoring system when we are looking at scoring products for design for repair. Batteries are really important. Batteries are consumable. Everyone should be able to access batteries. We like the iPhone's design. It makes it easy to access the battery with these handy pull tabs. Samsung makes it harder with some more integrated adhesive. This is the Samsung phone. So with that, I would like to kind of turn it back to you guys, and let's have a little bit of a conversation.
Kyle, wow, a lot of information. Thank you so much for making repair visible and understandable, as well as for the update on the French Repairability Index. So with that, let's transition to questions and try to answer as many of your questions as we can. Quickly to my speakers, are you able to see some of the questions in the chat window?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
okay,
so we've got a
so if
question.
you'd like, I can let you two, answer as many as you'd like to and as you can, rather than me triaging them, if you will, for you.
Sure, we can go back and forth. I'll take one, and then Chris, maybe you can take one. So we got a question: do all products sold into France have to meet their repairability criteria? All products in these categories, smartphones, laptops, and a few others, have to have a repairability rating at retail when the consumer is purchasing it. It doesn't set a floor. If you score your product and it gets a 1 out of 10, that's fine, but the product has to have that label on the shelf, and then the consumers have the information to decide. And then it would be up to a purchaser to say, we're not going to buy products that score lower than a certain amount. I'll give you an example. At iFixit, our internal guideline is products have to score at least 6 out of 10 for us to buy it internally for our uses. And that has meant that we do not allow purchase of any Apple laptop manufactured after 2013 to be purchased with iFixit corporate dollars. They're not serviceable. They're short-lasted products. So if you want an Apple laptop from that iFixit is paying for, it's got to be a 2012, or you should switch to an HP that's more repairable.
Chris, thank you, Kyle. Chris, would you like to take one?
All right. Sorry, I'm getting a bit of a lag probably with our cameras turned on. So I've got a couple of questions which I can take together. So one of them asks, how long do you require spare parts to be available? And then for how many products, for all units sold or a percentage of units. So I would say one would have to imagine a sort of matrix. So going back to the presentation, it depends on the product, it depends on the regulation, it depends on the, regulation or voluntary criterion. So again, let's take the example of electronic displays. In that case, you would have as a mandatory requirement to have spare parts for internal power supply, connectors to connect external equipment, capacitors, batteries, accumulators, DVD, Blu-ray module if applicable, etc., etc. And then if you go to the EU Ecolabel criteria, you would see an expansion in the scope of spare products that you need to have available. So I guess it's a function of having mandatory criteria for some products and then expanding that on a voluntary basis with the EU Ecolabel. So the Ecolabel goes a little bit beyond with, where is it? Is it the screen assembly, the LED backlight, the stands, the power and control circuit board? So parts that are not in the mandatory requirements list. Then for how long? Again, it depends on the type of provision. So in the mandatory requirements, and it depends on the product. For electronic displays, I think it was a minimum of 7 years after the last product was put on the market. When we go to the Ecolabel, because we're targeting a higher environmental performance products, we can extend that period of time for awarding the Ecolabel. And then, if I understand the second part of the question, I cannot find a sort of percentage that the manufacturer, like percentage of spare parts, well, percentage of products that are on the market for which spare parts must be available. But in any case, it's down to market surveillance authority. So the requirement is there. If an order is placed, if a request is made for a spare part, that has to be available. So back to you, Kyle, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So one question was, Christoph says, hey, I'm French, and I've been told that the new French Repairability Index has been criticized by the EU Commission because the plan was to create an EU-wide scoring system, and France went ahead and did their own first. And that certainly is reasonable criticism, and clearly Chris is working on the Europe-wide scoring system. I have a feeling that over time it will be subsumed. I actually am really a fan of what France is doing, and I think that it is sort of putting a lot of pressure on Europe as a whole, and probably puts a little bit of pressure on Chris to move faster. We would like to see what France is doing Europe-wide. You mentioned that it was supposed to be published November 2020. The rules are all out. The specs and the standards and everything that you need to score products are all out and available. If you want help scoring products, iFixit can help you with that. We provide that as a service to manufacturers or the purchasers who want guidance. But I would expect January 1st to start seeing these products at retail. Now, one thing that France has said is that they're going to, like, the law goes into effect January 1st, 2021, but they're not going to start enforcement and fines until 2022. So they're giving manufacturers a little bit of a grace period. And by the way, it's the retailers that are on the hook for displaying the information, right? Because they're where consumers are going. And so the retailers, which in France is Fnac, Darty, and Boulanger, and other electronics retailers, they're the ones who are scrambling to get that information. And the retailers can't generally score products without collaboration with the manufacturers. There's information that you need to fill out that spreadsheet that only the manufacturers have. Chris, do you want to expand on that? That's kind of my take on it.
I'm gonna sort of dodge that. I mean, we've had discussions on an appropriate methodology to be able to assess and score. As I mentioned, the scoring system is under consideration within the Commission at the moment. The JRC published a study last year, but some of the challenges we are facing, and we want to make sure it's done right, is verification, making sure that the information that goes out is robust, is reliable. So we'll continue to be looking into those aspects. I don't know if I can.
Chris, I wish I could give you all more time to answer these wonderful questions that we're receiving, but we're almost out of time. So I'm going to bring us to a close, but I'd like to do that by posing one last question, moderator's prerogative. Please take less than 30 seconds each, and I will start with Nancy. But the question for all of you is, if you had a magic wand that you could wave and you could implement one best practice globally to further repair product longevity and circularity, what would you choose? I'll start with Nancy.
Well, thank you, Erica, for that question, because it actually builds on the conversation that Kyle and Chris have been having, which is, can we see more of what France has put out across the EU and actually more globally. And I mentioned at the start of this webinar that the Green Electronics Council is actually next year initiating an updating of our repairability criteria, and in no small part because, of course, we're seeing what France is doing, and of course we're aware of what Chris and his team are working on in the EU as well. So one of the ways, Kyle, as you know well, to get global adoption of credible criteria that Chris has the verification that's required is through an Ecolabel. So Erica, to answer your question, what's that one thing is I want my organization to actually continue to work with Kyle and iFixit and Chris and the Joint Research Center to bring more repairability criteria of the leading type that we're seeing evidenced in France into the EPEAT Ecolabel. That's what I'd like.
Thank you, Nancy. And Kyle and Chris, we're at the top of the hour, so apologies that we can't expand further, but I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar, and thank you in particular to our speakers for sharing their insights. As Nancy said, we look forward to working with you and the broader community in 2021 to catalyze further action. Once again, please note that today's webinar was recorded. It will be posted on GEC's website if you'd like to access it at a later date or share it with your colleagues. Thank you again. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Erica.
Thanks. Take care.
Cheers.